Be sure to check out mythvisionpodcast.com. Help MythVision grow, guys. Become a Patreon member. You guys will get early access to all my videos when I'm done editing them. Also, it's a small community where you guys can message me your questions and talk to me in private. You guys can also donate through PayPal and Cash App. Join the social media links down in the description. We have Twitter, Facebook, all sorts of social media. Help the community of MythVision grow. Hit the subscribe button, hit that bell so you guys are notified every time I do a live video and you don't miss any of my content. Dr. Price, one of our donors and good friends, Tessa Johns, she wrote and asked about the sinner's grave, right? And I'm going to read you our back and forth, if you will, so you can kind of catch the context of the discussion and then respond. She says, sorry, the question was about another, could be Abraham predating the Torah Abraham. Thanks. And I said, thanks for messaging us, or my automatic response for my page said that, sorry. She said, I have my own findings about the empty tomb. No questions there, LOL, thanks. Then I said, sorry, can you rephrase that question about Abraham better? Maybe elaborate a bit? Thank you, Tessa. She said, of course. In the way that Moses is comparable to Saigon and Noah to Gilgamesh with the flood story, is there an Abraham-like figure before him, or is Abraham a unique figure of the Torah? Dr. Price?
Well, it depends on how you define the appearance of Abraham in the Torah. He's a kind of, Jewish legend makes him like Gideon, oddly enough, in that Gideon, after he receives this visit from the angel, goes and destroys this statue or idol or something of Baal, and the neighbors see this, what the heck, and they figure he's an Antifa or something, and they figure he did it somehow, and so they all gather round Gideon's dad's house and say, we know he did it, bring him out, and he says, let Baal contend, which means if he's a real god, he could fight his own battles. Would he need a bunch of palookas like you to help him? And that is an etymological story trying to explain how Gideon's original name was Jerubbaal, which means let Baal contend, or may Baal contend, which means the parents were Baal worshippers, and they said they were expressing the wish that Baal would always fight for their son, but this is written after Baal is no good anymore, and so they've had to redo it. A lot of Bible stories are redefining names and all that. Well, in Jewish lore, Abraham was convinced that there was only one God by a vision or something. And so he destroys his father's idols of other, how many did he have? Was he like Dudley Moore in that movie Holy Moses, where he's working in this idol shop called Chock Full of Gods? The only funny thing in that awful movie. But there was like a Babylonian version of Job, but I don't think in the nature of the case there would have been a pre-biblical Abraham as a character if the big thing was he was the first monotheist, which is grossly anachronistic anyway. But I believe that that originally Abraham was the moon god, the father of a multitude, meaning the moon is the father of the stars in ancient astronomy. And that's why the Feast of Firstlings was done in the honor of the moon god, and so it had to be finished, eaten by when the moon went down, and so forth. And then the original significance survives in that thing where God says to Abe, take a look at the night sky, and he does, and he says, you see all the stars, well, your descendants will be more than them. Well, because he is the father of the stars originally, and and even the sacrifice, the Akedah Isaac, the sacrifice of Isaac story. He is about to slay Isaac, but is stopped at the last minute. That must originally have been about how the sun and the moon succeed one another, and but never for very long. So Abraham is the moon and would like to slay the sun so he could reign unopposed in the sky. But he can't do it because he's stopped at the last minute. And it's like the Halal son of Shahar thing in Isaiah 14. That's astrotheology. And so there was a mythic predecessor to or prototype for Abraham, but it wasn't, as far as I know, there was no other humanized character.
This is interesting because it takes it from like the typical Moses Sargon, Gilgamesh Noah narrative, and this is more astrotheological or celestial astrology type of a slant. I think that's interesting. So I want to poke just a little on her question. With him sacrificing his son, Isaac, being the sun, if you will, and him being the moon, and of course this is a lunar cult. My question would be, what is the ram? I mean, is the ram just an animal, or are we reading into it too much if I said, what if the ram is actually the age of some age figure? We're talking celestial, we're possibly talking great year concepts. I'm not sure about that. Not sure if they understood it like that. I know a lot of my astrotheology friends would suggest that they did know the great year. They understood precession of the equinoxes and whatnot. Do you think the ram signifies in that narrative just an actual animal that was sacrificed in their Torah, or do you think the ram in that section, that place that replaces the sun, is actually the age of the age of Aries, so to speak?
It could be. There's a parallel Hercules myth where, in fact, this could be the prototype. King Athamas has a son by his queen, but she dies and he marries another queen and has a son by her, and he is going to be the heir to the throne. Well, maybe the original queen didn't die, but he had a second wife. I forget what it was, but yeah, because she's still around. She resents her son being edged out of the line of succession, and so she pays an oracle to tell King Athamas that the gods want you to sacrifice your firstborn, and so he's ready to do it. But Hercules appears and says, "My father Zeus loathes human sacrifice," and the golden fleece ram is seen in the thicket, and so Phrixus, the son, leaps onto the back of the ram, which carries him to Colchis on the Black Sea, and that's where Jason will later go to find the golden fleece. And so that's also astrological because Hercules is the sun god, so he has a different role than Isaac does, but you can still see that element in there, and it too has the ram, and so I don't know if it doesn't fit the pattern exactly, but so much of it does that, yeah, it could easily have to do with that. Just like Elisha and the two bears are Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, which they also thought of as bear symbols at the time. And so that's very similar. And Elisha being bald is the moon. And so you got a bunch of this stuff. Like this, you can find all kinds of stuff about this. And a great book by Ignaz Goldziher. It's Ignaz Goldzhiher, Hungarian. He was a great scholar of the Old Testament and Islam, and In his book, Mythology Among the Hebrews, he goes into all these things, and it's more extensive than you would suspect about how the various patriarchs and so on were really celestial bodies and all that. It is completely convincing, at least to me. It's gone out of fashion with mainstream scholarship. It's seen as a kind of a vestige of Max Muller's view of the gods as being stars and all that. But I think it's correct.
There's a wink at Russell Gamirkin, ladies and gentlemen. If there's a Hellenistic connection between Abraham, that would be interesting.
Oh yeah, you bet.